How we doing, everybody? Sam here, United People's TV, with an impromptu live show. I don't really think I can sit there and just watch this news fly by and not do a live show on it this time. Jacob Steinberg from The Guardian reporting, jumping the gun, being first to it. Damn it, just closed the window by accident. That was an idiot. Let me reopen that. Is he jumping the gun? Is he first to the news? Is he the first willing to put his name to the news? I don't know which one you want to call it. But Jacob Steinberg here is saying that Erik ten Hag is going to be sacked by Manchester United regardless of the outcome of the final. All right? And my word. It is the day before the FA Cup final and we are having these conversations. This I'll try and answer as many of your questions, as many as your comments as I possibly can. We'll have like a little half an hour show here. But this is this is ridiculous, if you're asking me. The fact that Erik ten Hag is going to be replaced as a manager of Manchester United, that concept is not ridiculous. All right. Whether you feel that Erik ten Hag should be given the chance to be our manager at the start of next season, or you think he should be replaced, that's a debate. All right. That's just standard fan discourse and standard fan debate. What isn't standard is for the day before the FA Cup final, the day before the domestic showpiece of English football, the day before United are in their third cup final in 2 years, that this comes out. And immediately I'm seeing quite a few people pointing the finger towards Ineos, pointing the finger towards Jim Ratcliffe. But I think the person reporting this is quite important in this, all right? Jacob Steinberg, okay? For me, now, this is all going to be down to interpretation. I appreciate that, and you can interpret the news how you want to interpret the news. But I'm just telling you what I think. Jacob Steinberg, I think this is all directly related to this. This is all directly related as to what has happened with Pochettino this week. All right? Because one little look back here on Jacob Steinberg's, what articles has he written for The Guardian recently? Let's have a quick look through. Chelsea. 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 Do you get the point? Jacob Steinberg, when it comes to Manchester United reporters, we're looking towards Andy Mitten. We're looking towards Laurie Whitwell. We're looking towards David Ornstein. Well, he's in general, but they are the people that you will be looking for this news. So when it came to Omar Berrada, there was not one Manchester United fan, there was not one journalist who knew about this until it was announced. Because Ineos kept it under wraps. It feels like Ineos have kept... You know what this feels like to me? This feels to me like Ineos made their mind up on Erik ten Hag a while ago. And behind the scenes have been executing a plan between Jason Wilcox, between Omar Berrada as much as he can, between Dan Ashworth as much as he can, to plan for what is coming next. And this now has come out not from the Manchester United side. Well, Belly is saying, do you believe this article? Do you think it's fake news? This feels far too big for a journalist. Like Jacob Steinberg is a very established journalist. All right. I would be extremely surprised if you put his name to something of that size and scale as a bit of fake news. No, I don't. I just think he's been the first that's been willing to put his name to it. And it seems like we are in a Van Gaal part 2. Like anybody who just witness how fucking weird it's going to be tomorrow. It might be different because it's Erik ten Hag. I think the sentiment, but it's just going to be odd. It's just going to be odd. And Anita saying Ineos creating more drama than the Glazers. Truth be told, I do not think this in any way, shape or form is coming from the Ineos side. The only way that that Ineos could have got around this idea is, so if Ineos didn't, as I said, I wouldn't, trying to think how I'm going to word this. I don't think you can massively disagree with the idea that Erik ten Hag is being sacked. I think you can argue against it. You can argue for all the mitigating circumstances and everything. The reason I'm saying that is it's not an outrageous decision by Ineos. But what is outrageous here is the timing of it all. Player FC wins again. This is an Ineos decision. This isn't a player decision. It's the timing that gets me. It's the timing that is killing me. The only way that this could have been avoided, maybe maybe it was all in hand until this. And Matt, this is what I'm saying. It feels directly linked to Poch being sacked by Chelsea and Kieran McKenna being one of the leading candidates to become the replacement for Erik ten Hag. It really feels like it's going to be Tuchel or McKenna, two completely opposite ends of the spectrum. But I'm not talking about that just now. This has come from the Chelsea side. These leaks have come from the Chelsea side. The reason, and I think I've touched on this in my live show today, the reason that Ineos were able to keep the Barada situation under wraps is because nobody stood anything to gain. There was nothing to gain by anybody leaking anything to the press. And that's why not one peep came out. Whereas in this situation, there are different vultures looking from different angles and ways in and ways to swipe and ways to gain power in negotiations and everything like that. So because there's two sides of it, that's when the concept of leaks exists. And that's why this has come out the day before an FA Cup final. Ineos would not have wanted this, right? You're seeing what's being reported elsewhere from Manchester Evening News, who, of course, have got far closer ties, well, Sammy Luckhurst has closer ties to Manchester United than Jacob Steinberg does. This is basically, I imagine, the last thing that Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos would have wanted. The only way that could have been avoided would have been to publish a statement. You know how Bayern Munich a couple of months ago released a statement saying at the end of the season Thomas Tuchel will be leaving. We thank him for his time, blah, blah, blah. They did that a couple of months ago, and of course there was no speculation until there was speculation again because about 4 managers rejected him and then he tried to get the job again. Anyway, different point of... That's the only way that this particular moment here could have been avoided. It just feels like you can think what you want about Ineos and you can think what you want about Ratcliffe, but if you genuinely think, just think about how ludicrous the concept is. Like, Ineos and Jim Ratcliffe have been sitting there for a couple of months going, oh, well, we're going to sack him. Nah, let's do it. Let's do it on the eve of the FA Cup final for ultimate fuckery. Just think about how ludicrous that conversation. This is somebody who's just spent $1.5 billion on our football club, and he wants to do that. When you say it like that and you think about it, you go, well, actually, no. When you say it like that, Sam, it's probably not come from Ineos. There's no way this has come from the Ineos side of things. Well, I've seen quite a few people saying it. I'm going to read some of your comments out down here because no doubt this is going to be a spicy comment section. Understandably so. There's a couple of super chats. Let me read these out. Understandably, it might get a bit ratty in this show because it really is 2016 all over again. It really, really is. Man. Marcy, you're saying we'll be here again in 2 years. Well, maybe. Erik ten Hag, as it stands, looks like the last managerial victim of a club without a structure, rather than the first manager who's going to get the true opportunity to work inside one. And I was hoping it was going to be the latter. It may not have worked out for Erik Ten Hag at the start of next season, but it seems like Ineos are not going to be waiting to find out. D, you're saying Maguire, Rashford, etc. all get another crack. Maguire, I think, has been fair enough, been pretty damn decent this season. Marcus Rashford, I think he will get another crack next season. And that's simply because I don't think anybody's going to come in with a big enough bid that Man United would consider selling him. Tom, you're saying, if true, at which point do you reassess your support for a club that is now consistently out of sync with your own values? I mean, I appreciate the super chat there, but I'm a United fan. I will never not be a United fan. No matter how much crap they put out on the pitch, no matter how much crap they do, I will never support another football club. Nothing will change that. Rex, you're saying, I didn't think I could be more ashamed of my club, but here it is. Van Gaal was right about United. Looks like they lied to Ten Hag's face, like he predicated that. That's probably the bit that really doesn't sit right with me, or a bit that Erik Ten Hag. I've sort of maintained this whole way. I've maintained that either Erik Ten Hag has been told behind the scenes by Ineos that you'll find you are going to be managing next season, or they've told him behind the scenes that no, we're actually going to replace you. And if Erik Ten Hag had the ability to have not the front, because to have a front, it sounds like an offensive thing to say, but if Erik Ten Hag had the ability to carry himself how he did, in the knowledge that he was leaving Manchester United, that would be extremely impressive. But I suppose we'll find out, right? Tony is saying, I hope Bruno hands in a transfer request. There is no trust or faith in Ineos. The players have won and the manager rotation continues. Players have no need to show up tomorrow. I reckon there's a lot of, an absolute ton of those players who will graft tomorrow. Maybe even more so. Not that Bruno could graft anymore. Zayateng is saying, you agree with, you actually think that Erik Ten Hag should have gone. And Jibak, you're saying, was quite obvious that Ineos hadn't decided on keeping Ten Hag or had already decided to let him go. If the decision was to keep him, they'd have publicly backed him much earlier. Honestly, ladies and gents, it just really feels like this is almost a bit of a reaction to this, and not by Manchester. Reaction from Manchester United in the concept that we probably accelerated conversations with Kieran McKenna. It feels like Man United will wait until the FA Cup. This is what the plan sort of felt like. I feel like Manchester United will wait until the end of the season, waiting until the FA Cup. And if that shortlist was there, and if the shortlist didn't exist with Poch on it, the shortlist would have been Kieran McKenna, Thomas Tuchel, and Thomas Frank. And nobody really was lining up any of those managers. Were they? Nobody. Thomas Tuchel was completely sitting there and he was waiting. I don't think United were expecting Chelsea to sack Poch. It feels like what's happening now with Erik Ten Hag is a ripple effect of what's happened with Chelsea. That's my personal interpretation of the timing of all of this. Perception, if you want to call it that. That's the way I see it. Because as I said with Omar Barada, if Ineos wanted to keep it behind closed doors, they would have kept it behind closed doors. Although it's very difficult and very different, I suppose, hiring a CEO than it is hiring a manager. Because managers are public facing. CEOs, they sit behind the scenes. You don't really know who they are. You just know they're good at their job. Whereas managers they are the front of the club. So therefore, they're going to have more representatives, maybe more whispers behind the scenes. Jeez. What are we saying down here? Given there was little to play for, if they wanted to sack him, they would have said earlier, I think something's changed. I think something has changed. As I said, and I don't think all of a sudden it's because Ineos have decided, oh, lads, you know what? I changed my mind. Actually, I think we should sack him. There was no football result that happened past, so probably the Crystal Palace game. How many games did we have left after that? A few. I can't remember now. Gladly. I just, you know how when, this is a bit of a random thing to say, but like when your mind goes through trauma, it sort of blanks it off and you can't remember it. I think it's what my mind has done for last season, watching Man United. It's like when I had surgery and had all the stitches taken out on my foot. My previous operation, I didn't remember how bad it was because my mind had blanked it off. I didn't even have the memory of it. Yeah, we won our last 2 games. Oh, Jesus, that's what I mean. Oh, this season has ended me. This season has ended me. Kelt, this guy's acting on here acting as if it's a true story. I'll be totally honest. I'll be extremely surprised if Jacob Steinberg dropped a story of that magnitude without having these sources to back it up. He's not a David McDonald from the Mirror level. He really isn't. I think there's a couple more super chats. I'm going to try and read some of your comments out around here. It's man, what a ridiculously strange day we've got ahead tomorrow, ladies and gents. We needed every single player, every single person involved in Manchester United to be utterly focused and on point to have a chance against City tomorrow. But instead, we're now coming from the point where Erik ten Hag has been sacked and the dressing room is sitting there going, this is your last game. Jesus. It's kind of a fair point. A fair question, I suppose. Do you think Erik ten Hag is asked to leave? I don't think that can be ruled out. But I think, I said in the show this morning, if Erik ten Hag was to walk away, he would walk away from his own severance package. And I think no amount of pride would do that. I think that would be like a mega pride situation. Maybe that is. Maybe I'm being completely unfair and wrong and looking at this from the wrong perspective. But that contract is there for a reason. I would be surprised if he walked away from it and negated on that. Tony, you're saying it makes sense now. No backing in January. Sent back our only healthy left back because the medical staff got that completely wrong. Sabotage the season and make it easier to fire him. Tony, you are on one, sir. You are on one. That is a conspiracy theory of magnitude, we call that. So Erik ten Hag sabotaged the whole second half of the season and decided to send Fernandes away on loan because he wanted to sabotage it, because he wanted to get fired. Whew. That's a lot. That's a lot to take in. Can this season end? Boy, I've been asking that for how many months now? I don't know how many months. This is what Fabrizio's saying on it, by the way. Right, this is from his latest video that he's just put out.
Manchester United will wait for the final, obviously, will give Erik ten Hag the opportunity of the final, but in general, the possibility of saying Manchester United and Erik ten Hag to part ways after the final remains concrete.
See, this is the thing. I've said it there. I've said it quite a few times. Ineos probably would have been planning this for a good while now. I don't know how many weeks exactly, and we can't there. We're going to wait until we hear from the statement and maybe hear more information, which maybe will be coming tomorrow night now. But there's no way that Ineos would have wanted it to go down in the way that it has gone down. For this to all come out the day before. You know what, Erik ten Hag? I wonder if there's going to be a journalist fucking ballsy enough, and there probably will be, to ask Erik ten Hag before the FA Cup final to comment on reports that he is going to be sacked regardless of the outcome. That's. I imagine there's going to be somebody that poses that question to him before the game, not even after the game, but before the game. And it's hard enough to beat this City team with 115 reasons why it's difficult to beat them without that hanging over your head. Man, this football club. Yeah, Joe, I know. I saw the BBC ask that yesterday, but this has now escalated up a level. The BBC asked it, what would you say on reports is going to be your final game? I wonder if Erik ten Hag's been told. Do you think there's any chance that Erik ten Hag has been told? I'm going to ask you your opinions here. How do you think this has all gone down? Do you think that Ineos this whole time have been telling Erik ten Hag, you're going to be in charge next season. Don't worry about it. Or do you think that after maybe a certain game this season, that Ineos pulled into the side and said, look, we've decided that we're going to be moving on, but we don't want to release this to the public yet. We want you to be seeing the season out, and we would see it as disrespectful for it to come out before the end of the season. So I'm sure you can appreciate. And as I said, whether or not Erik ten Hag should have been in charge of Manchester United next season was a debate, right? It's not an outrageous decision to sack Erik ten Hag. You may disagree with it and the idea that he should have been given the chance, but it's not an outrageous decision after the season that we had, even with the mitigating factors. But what is outrageous, and the thing that really all of us are annoyed about, at its core, is the timing of it. For all of this to happen the day before the final is just, it's brutal. It's brutal on Erik ten Hag. It's brutal on the players that give a shit. I'm going to see what you're saying in the comments down there. Richard saying, what a classless, sorry club with, as I said, and maybe I didn't say it again. This very much feels like it's coming from the Chelsea side. Very much feels it's a direct consequence of Poch being sacked, Chelsea wanting McKenna, United also going after McKenna, and those crossroads, those two paths that have met, Kieran McKenna and United going after him, seemingly is the reason that this has all come out. And United, by the way, Ineos, having contingency plans, of course they should. Of course Man United should have contingency plans. I don't think there's any United fan that would ever think that we would be naive enough to not have contingency plans. Any vein of life, any business, you need a contingency plan. You do. Otherwise, you could get left up shit creek without a pedal. Ido Punko, Sam, if you were CEO, assuming you did not want the story released, what consequences would you dole out to the journalists who have printed the story? I mean, consequences? What's going to happen? Well, Omar Barada, who's not our CEO yet, is going to ban Jacob Steinberg from reporting on Manchester United, and I don't particularly think he is even the chief reporter from The Guardian on Manchester United. Is it? No, Jason Burt's from The Telegraph. I'm not. Jamie Jackson, I think, is the main. This is exactly the point here. Jamie Jackson is the man in Manchester for The Guardian. Yet this story is coming from Jacob Steinberg. And that there is just more evidence, I suppose you can call it evidence if you want, more, evidence to support my narrative, which I don't think is a narrative. It just, this is the point. This has come from the Chelsea side. This has not come from Ineos or the Manchester side. It's come from the flip side. And that's what makes it worse, man. What will the media do if it turns out to be false? Wow, that would be some U-turn. Let's have a look down here and see what's being reported. There's separate like whispers and reports that Erik ten Hag was told before the Arsenal game, but that's not really being reported anywhere. So I wouldn't take in too much credence on that. But it's going to be... This whole weekend now is just going to all be about... Fuck's sake, man. It really feels like we're going to get one of these. Let me pull this up. Half past 8, by the way. I think I asked you earlier what time this came out. I asked you earlier in the live shows at what point. So the FA Cup final, I'm presuming it was at 3 o'clock. It was a 8:30 when the statement came out from Manchester United that Louis van Gaal was going to be replaced. There you go. 8:30. I can't believe we're in this situation again. You know how mad that is? Anybody with better football knowledge than me, has there been another club that has sacked a manager? Well, has there been another club that is going to be sacking their manager and they do it just before the FA Cup final? Didn't Spurs sack Mourinho just before? Was it the League Cup final? Was that one? I think that might have been one. I don't know if any other clubs have done it off the top of my head. I think you're all saying Mourinho and Spurs down there. I think that's the one. That's the one that I remember. Someone's saying Mancini went in a similar way. I can't remember. I really can't. There's a couple of super chats. Let me read these out. Fans should go out there and show their absolute support for Erik ten Hag. Make Ineos think again. Chris, with the greatest of respect, Man United fans aren't going to change Ineos' mind. And I think fans have supported this team and supported Erik ten Hag as loudly and proudly as I can remember. One of the best away ends I've heard in a long-ass time was Crystal Palace when we lost 4-0. Even against Arsenal. It was almost like defiant support from the United fans. So I think they've pretty much done all they can do. Chris, you're saying its timing is terrible and it's a total disrespect for Ten Hag. McKenna's another wild card. He deserved another season under Ineos. I'm 50-50 if they are savvy or a circus. I think part of this, Chris, is reacting to the market around them, which, ladies and gents, was always going to be a big defining factor in what happens this summer. This summer now, I don't even know. I've run out of, Barcelona sacked Xavi about 2 hours ago, having previously a month ago said that he was staying. Well done, Barca. Bayern Munich have obviously, of course, sacked Thomas Tuchel. Juventus have sacked Allegri. Milan have sacked Pioli. Liverpool, Klopp's left Liverpool. That's 5, and I think there might be other clubs that I'm forgetting as well. All in the same summer as Manchester United. It is unprecedented. I do not think this will ever happen again. Joe, you're saying Ineos need to put a statement out. Ineos cannot do anything before the FA Cup final. It was never in the plan to do anything before the FA Cup final. And I very much doubt, even if this does indeed prove to be true, and I'll be honest, it looks like it does, right? It looks like it does. Ineos won't be dropping... Chelsea, I forgot about Chelsea, of course. Ineos won't be dropping a statement before the final. But ladies and gents, I would now predict an LVG part 2, and for tomorrow night, us to be on here speaking about Erik ten Hag being sacked. That's what I would predict. Klein, you're saying, Sam, it's all clickbait to me. Why would Chelsea sacking Pochettino affect us? It's completely fake news. As I said, as I've just explained to you there, dude. Nobody expected this Pochettino situation, all right? No Chelsea fan, no other fan. It was like, what? And it was a bomb. It was a very big surprise that Poch got sacked on the 21st. It's 3 days later. Chelsea then immediately went after their different managers they're looking at. And McKenna was one of them. And as it transpires, McKenna was on Manchester United's shortlist. So while United thought that they could wait until the end of the season because nobody was really looking at Frank, Tuchel or McKenna, all of a sudden Chelsea were, and they wanted to do it rapidly because they knew that if United was available, that Kieran McKenna would only choose one of those two jobs. And Man United have reacted by accelerating conversations with McKenna, and by doing so, it's now been leaked that Erik ten Hag is going to be sacked. It feels like that's what's happened. And as I said, Michael, why no comment from Ineos? Ineos will not comment on this until after the FA Cup final. They never, ever plan to. They never plan to. David, you're saying tomorrow night we'll know a lot more, and I'll be honest, I do agree with you there. But man, It's a gut wrench, this one. As somebody mentioned, Mourinho was sacked by Spurs a number of days before the cup final. Yeah, that's the one I do remember. Was that against... Who was in the final? Was that Chelsea they played in the final? Was that Conte? Were they playing up against Conte? I can't remember. Marcy saying, why does it feel like a mistake? Did I say that? The Junior saying, Sam, why are you upset? It's like, mate, I genuinely think, really think, if it was a different manager who had managed his club for the last 2 years and Erik ten Hag hadn't come to United at all, and he was the man who Ineos were looking to bring in as part of their new structure, then I think he could have been incredible at this football club. A lot of what you see in Kieran McKenna's football, identity-wise, you can look across at what you think you're going to get from Erik ten Hag and see similarities. Have Bayern... Oh no, Bayern have got company now, haven't they? Bayern have got company. Ajax have got Farioli. I don't know. Fuck's sake. Mate, this timing of it stinks. I'm not upset. I'm not going to burst into tears, man. But I've got a lot of admiration for Erik ten Hag. I think he genuinely had the right thing in mind for this club. And I think what he did at the beginning with the discipline, what he did last season, I remember that 2-month period where we were just, it felt for the first time that everything was slotting back into place at Manchester United. And then we tailed out towards the end of last season. I think we got the summer recruitment massively wrong. I think Erik ten Hag was a big part of that, unfortunately, because we didn't have somebody in charge of it. And then this season has just been a catastrophe at pretty much every turn. Whether it's injuries, whether it's results, whether it's decisions, whether it's the Champions League. And it's had its moments, but it's just... Erik ten Hag pivoted away from what were his principles and adapted Man United more. He adapted far more to Manchester United's players and created a transitional style that just didn't work, man. I wish he had stuck to his guns more. But maybe it was like an untenable position, and maybe he couldn't do it. Maybe there would have been like a revolt in the player dressing room. You can only sort of guess there. Yeah, ladies and gents, I'll say this one more time, right? So the reason we're here is because Jacob Steinberg is saying that Ineos have decided to sack Erik ten Hag after the final, regardless of the result. As I have maintained for quite a long time now, the result of the FA Cup final, there's no way that Ineos are going to be making a decision based off one result either way. Therefore, the decision has been planned for a while. And therefore, I hope that Erik ten Hag is known for a while, but I won't know that. Tuchel or McKenna by the looks of it. It's just the timing, all right? Whether or not I disagree with Ineos' decision, I don't think it's an outrageous one to the point where you can't argue logically and justify it. But the timing of it, it reeks, man. What a horrible way to go out as a manager. And this come from the Chelsea side that's done this to Ten Hag. You might say, oh, actually, Ineos did it because they didn't release a statement. Yeah, as I said, the only way that they could have got around this would be to have released a statement a while ago saying that we decided to part ways at the end of the season in the same way that Liverpool did with Klopp, in the same way that Bayern Munich did with Tuchel. And maybe, ladies and gentlemen, maybe that is a mistake from Ineos, and maybe that is. I think you could potentially look at it that way, because had the Klopp news not come out, Klopp and Liverpool is such a huge club and a huge story that at some point it would have been leaked Bayern Munich and Thomas Tuchel was such a huge club that at some point it probably would have leaked. So they got there first. And maybe Ineos just felt that, and I'll be honest, as I said, I'm going to go back to this. I think up until this point, they were keeping it behind closed doors. They were keeping it to themselves, and it was internal. Until then. But maybe that was naive of Ineos to think that they could really keep it to themselves the whole time. I don't know. There's a comment there from Connor. Ineos didn't leak anything. People need to remember that. It's the right call and they had to make moves. You just mentioned in there about the idea that he was told before Arsenal. I'm seeing that as well. Ladies and gents. What a season. And I don't mean that in a positive way. What an end to the season. And it's not even ended yet. FA Cup final tomorrow, and it's going to be a very strange... It won't be a strange atmosphere. Everybody in the ground will be bang up for the game. Once the game kicks off, it won't be a strange atmosphere, but the build-up to it is just going to be odd, strange. How much on BBC is going to be dedicated to speaking about Erik ten Hag being sacked? Well, I think we're in for a busy few days here on United People's TV. I'll wrap that one up. But as I said, this is coming from the Chelsea side. And for me, it feels directly linked to the Poch situation. It's not that I'm broken, mate. The timing of it is just shit. I can completely understand all of your points of view, and I've understood all the points of view that felt that Ten Hag should be sacked. And I'll be honest, I think you had plenty of reason to justify it. But the day before the FA Cup final, grim. And I do feel for Erik ten Hag. But I'm going to wrap this one up for today now. I'll see you tomorrow for the FA Cup final. And seemingly, Erik ten Hag's last game.